USAID, the United States Agency for International Development, British American Tobacco, BGL Securities, Coca-Cola Nigeria and Equatorial Africa, Kakawa Discount House, Zain Nigeria Limited, MTN. I could go on and on and on. He's also a member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria and has been on the federal government's economic management team. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, our theme is Nigeria's changing macroeconomic environment and potential impact of agriculture and urban development in Ogun State. I hand you over to your moderator, Dr. Doyin Salami.
Well, the title for this session is Nigeria's Changing Macroeconomic Environment and the Potential Impact on Agriculture and Urban Development in Ogun State. Looking at the panel that's been composed, I don't think we could get a better panel. To begin with, we have practitioners, Chief Abeokuta, who is the chairman of Etugo Farms, and also Mr. Dipo Onobanjo, who is a very highly respected ethics surveyor and valuer. They will bring certainly their hands-on experience in agriculture and in urban development. Of course, for Nigeria, and I suspect in many other countries, financing, I'm sure, is one of those issues that will doubtless raise its head. Therefore, the presence of Mr. Segun Agbaje, who is the Managing Director, CEO of GT Bank PLC, will certainly shed some light on some of the issues. From the perspective of this country, it's always useful to understand what's going on in the rest of the world. And therefore, the presence on this panel of the World Bank's Country Director for Nigeria, Ms. Marie-Francoise Marinelli, is also very, very important. And certainly, this is Ogun State. I tell everybody in Lagos that I'm an Ijebu boy, even if I'm an economist. DNA and educational training combining into one. But this is, as I say, Ogun State, and it would be useful to get a perspective of the government of Ogun State. And therefore, the presence of Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, Honorable Commissioner for Finance, is doubtless a very welcome addition. Before we begin the process of conversation, let me just share with you my own sense of some of these changing the characteristics of Nigeria's changing macroeconomic environment. A couple of weeks ago, roughly a month, new GDP figures put Nigeria as the largest economy in Africa. $509 billion worth of economic activity annually. But when you look at those numbers, the structure of that economic activity has changed very significantly. For me as an economist, perhaps one of the most startling revelations in the new figures is the size of agriculture's contribution to our national economy. Up until about a month ago, we used to say 40–42%. Now, we are talking about figures in the low 20s. Up until a month ago, we used to look at industry as being rather problematic. With the new figures, you're seeing industry around about 28%. Of course, all this includes mining and manufacturing. But perhaps the most startling part of Nigeria's new macro reality is that the service sector is now half of our economy. Now, there are issues that raises. A second set of issues that we shouldn't forget as far as the Nigerian macro environment is concerned has to do with issues of cost. Activity may be growing, but costs are also issues to be borne in mind. As a member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank, we worry about inflation. Talking about inflation at sub 8% is very pleasant, especially given where we're from. But when you look at Ogun State, the latest figures suggest inflation in Ogun State is somewhere around about 14%. And therefore, is something to be mindful of because it certainly plays to a role in competitiveness. How competitive is an environment is not just a matter of the infrastructure, it's partly, it's significantly a matter of how costs overall are rising. Beyond costs, competitiveness is massively an issue, and that is an area where Nigeria continues to do rather badly. But let me also put on the table two other dimensions of our macro environment that certainly will need to be reflected upon. I spoke about costs a few moments ago, but wasn't particularly specific beyond inflation. The cost of borrowing is certainly an issue that will address, well, has been addressing and will continue to address minds. The two sectors of which we see are sectors that require long-term funding at hopefully cost levels or interest rate levels that are manageable, single digits preferably. So when you're doing prime lending somewhere around about 17% and other borrowers are borrowing somewhere in excess of 20%, then of course it certainly raises issues as to how do you get funding, who provides the funding, the structure of the funding, and how useful that funding is going to be. One other point that I should quickly put on the table is that Ogun State has a much faster rate of urbanization than Nigeria does. Yes, the rate of its urban population is slightly lower than Nigeria's. Nigeria is slightly over 50%, Ogun is about 43–44%. But what recent figures are showing is that the rate of urbanization in Ogun is growing much faster than it is at the national level. And therefore, the issues that have been put on the table are issues that are worthy of consideration. Let me start this conversation by inviting the World Bank's country director, Marie-Françoise Marie-Medi, to share with us her own views, her own perspective of how agriculture in particular for Ogun State could be a game changer.
Thank you, Dr. Salami. I would like, if you allow me, to put that, since you said that the World Bank has the opportunity of having a view of the world and certainly of the continent, to say what it means from the continent, and then especially from Nigeria and how Ogun fits into that. I heard President Vincente say, when you are in a clear direction and then you identify the vision, you can position yourself within it. We conducted a study last year looking at agriculture in Africa, and actually the title is Africa Can Feed Africa. What we found, as you said, Dr. Salami, the urbanization is moving and we have a growing urban population which needs to be fed and which becomes more sophisticated in the type of food that is needed. So it does actually change the type of demand that is expected from consumers. Secondly, we see that up until now, only 5% of the production of the farmers provide the services, the food that is needed. So that means that there is a big potential for Africa to review the agriculture and, of course, sophisticate the products so that they can capture and replace this huge import substitution. And our data says that